as we continue to make headlines concerning the Central American flow and flood of humanity coming into the country illegally. Ranchers and farmers on the border and in Deep South Texas have been dealing with smugglers and coyotes for a long time, and I suspect the numbers are not getting any better for them as well. He's been following that for years, working as Ag Commissioner, and we welcome back to the show Texas Ag Commissioner Todd Staples. Commissioner, good morning, sir. So what are you hearing these days with this big flood of humanity coming in from Central America? Have things changed for ranchers and farmers in Deep South Texas?
Unfortunately, our farmers and ranchers in Texas really were the best indicator early on about the problems that we were having. And now the flood continues now with unaccompanied children. It is a real indicator of just how porous our border is. The drug cartels are, no doubt about it, taking advantage of our Border Patrol not patrolling our border and rather making sandwiches and passing out juice. And our farmers and ranchers continue to recognize the fact that we are outnumbered in Texas. Our Border Patrol agents are only about 7 per border mile in Texas as compared to 14 plus in the other sister states. And when you have a discrepancy in resources and manpower, the drug cartels are taking advantage of it, and that's what we live with today.
Texas ranchers on the border and here in Deep South Texas, when they confront or they encounter smugglers and coyotes, how dangerous of a situation does that turn out to be sometimes, and what are some of the damages that these individuals inflict on their property?
Well, fortunately, the relationship that our farmers and ranchers have had with not only the good relationship that they've had with our sheriff's department, our local police departments, and the Department of Public Safety, but with the Border Patrol, the lines of communication have been opened significantly in the last few years. However, ranchers arm themselves in order to protect themselves and their families. Fences are cut, property is stolen, chases occur throughout their property. Some farmers and ranchers have testified that they've gotten out of the business because of the ongoing drama and saga that occurs, and they live with this on a regular basis. One farmer told me a big piece of machinery of his was actually stolen and found with $1.2 million worth of marijuana packed in that the cartels were trying to attempt to use. And you can imagine the fear for his family, the fact that if he went and hooked up to his piece of equipment, that either the cartels would come after him for taking their marijuana or that law enforcement would come after him.
Yeah.
And so these are the real testimony, firsthand testimony of farmers and ranchers that is still going on today. It's being overshadowed. We know in Washington they're trying to debate whether to allocate resources or not. I certainly hope that the House is able to pass a funding bill that is focused on resources to be available in Texas, because
Yes,
what we're having is just untenable.
There's so much to talk to you about this morning. Todd Staples, Ag Commissioner for the state of Texas. And before I punt over to Tim Sullivan, our news director, I got to ask you this because you just reminded me. You mentioned some of the drama out at the ranches. And in the headlines this week, sir, have been these militias, these citizens that are providing some type of security, I guess offering security. I can tell you that Dr. Vickers up in Falfurrias was quoted as saying, "Thanks, but no thanks, not on my ranch land." But I don't know if other ranchers on the border of South Texas are taking the services of these citizens that are willing to go on patrol. What is your opinion of some of these militias that have been in the news of late?
Well, my opinion is that Dr. Vickers and the Texas Border Volunteers is the model to do things right. I think we can understand the frustration of the American people when our federal government has utterly failed to act and secure our borders and provide the resources. However, it's very important for anyone to recognize that if you're going on someone's private property without permission, you're trespassing and you're breaking the law. And you need to absolutely avoid doing that under any circumstances. Furthermore, if you do cooperate with a rancher or farmer that wants extra eyes and ears on their property, it's paramount that you only do that in cooperation with local law enforcement.
Yeah, so everybody's on the same page. Understood. There's so many people coming on and off that property all the time. Joining us on 710 KURV, Texas Ag Commissioner Todd Staples.
Commissioner Tim Sullivan here, and when you talk about the Central American kids who've been flowing across the border here. How are they impacting ranchers up north when they're turning themselves into Border Patrol agents right there at the border and being held in local detention centers right here on the border?
I think the biggest impact, Tim, that the children that are having is the fact that what I personally witnessed when I was at the McAllen substation, and the fact that our Border Patrol agents that are trained to help secure our border and to take on the drug cartel are making sandwiches and passing out juice. The manpower is being diverted from preventing and securing our border to aiding children that are coming across and giving the drug cartels unfettered access. And that's the biggest challenge I think that we're seeing with what's going on with the children today. Taking up resources.
Yeah, my question was, though, when you were talking about the kids, all these kids coming over and the ranchers, how are these kids impacting the ranchers?
Well, that is my answer to that question. Ranchers are being impacted because the Border Patrol are being deflected. They're taking up resources from that should be there protecting our ranchers.
You don't think the DPS enforcement surge is working very well then, or?
Having the additional resources that the state of Texas is providing is absolutely necessary, I believe, because we know that the Border Patrol does not have the resources necessary to both care for those children and to provide the security for our nation. So I absolutely support Governor Perry's decision to put National Guard troops, bring them in. I've been calling for that for years. We know that both President George W. Bush and President Obama has had National Guard troops on the border in previous times. We know that with the apprehensions increasing in Texas, very specifically, almost 100% increase from 2012 to 2013, that more resources are clearly needed.
What is there a protocol, or what's the protocol for ranchers who come across immigrants who are crossing their property? Are they free to act on their own, one way or the other?
I've had several landowner listening sessions. Border Patrol has met with our landowners along with DPS and our rangers and many local law enforcement. And the protocol is very clear. Call the Border Patrol, call your local law enforcement, and let them take that action. And that is what ranchers want to happen rather than them taking action themselves. And that's what Dr. Vickers and the Texas Border Volunteers do. They're the eyes and ears. But what they're finding is this. Just last year, they found an Urdu language dictionary on a Brooks County ranch. Recently, just a few weeks ago, 3 Ukrainians were actually apprehended in Brewster County.
Yeah, they come from all over the world. And you mentioned how the cartels and all you have to do is go down to Sister Zita Telkamp's refuge and see she's pretty much full with people from Africa, from many parts of Africa, especially Muslim portions of Africa that are there taking refuge right now. You mentioned cartels and coyotes getting free rein as the Border Patrol is doing babysitting service at the moment. Now, the long-term solution for this, there's got to be, at least from the Texas perspective, some type of long-term solution. Now, the Attorney General running for governor saying if he wins as governor, he wants I think he said $300 million and more DPS money for not only border protection, but fighting the gangs in Houston and Dallas, the cartels that are sopping up all these drugs and the people smuggling coming in. What in your mind is the solution, or a Texas funded solution for this border problem?
Well, hopefully our Congress will act and provide the resources so that Texas taxpayers will not have to fulfill a federal responsibility. But until that time in which they do that, we must recognize that having the manpower necessary is clearly what must be done. And that includes additional security forces to work in cooperation with Border Patrol. And it's very good to see the close working relationship that DPS has with Border Patrol. And we need the boots on the ground. We need that parity. Sergio and Tim, it's alarming to me that our delegation, Republican and Democrat alike, are not coming together to say, why does Texas only have half the Border Patrol agents per border mile than our sister states? That should be a resounding theme that they discuss every day and force their colleagues to give the resources. That will
Commissioner.
be the only way.
All right,
Yeah.
sir. Thanks for your time. Texas Ag Commissioner Todd Staples joining us on 710 KURV.